A good Thursday morning to you. Schools in our area have seen an increased number of threats over the past few months, like students bringing guns to school or over-the-phone tips. So what's being done to keep students' minds at ease? NBC 24's Brian Steinmetz spoke with the assistant superintendent of Perrysburg Schools to get some insight.
School lockdowns due to threats of guns, bombs, and other things. You've heard of these in the Toledo area a lot the last couple months, and it's a big question as to why. After the year we had due to the pandemic, finally back in school, why now are these threats coming about? Assistant Superintendent of Perrysburg Schools, Brooke Price, thinks it could be a mix of the pandemic and social media.
We're hearing about so many more issues. I think social media is everything happens so quickly and is able to be broadcast out there so quickly. So I do think it's so much more to the forefront of people's minds because they're seeing it very frequently in real time.
Perrysburg Schools are working to build a comprehensive safety program, and a small part of that is a monthly safety committee meeting comprised of people from each school, along with community members and first responders, to discuss potential issues. But there's a common understanding that a lot can be done starting in the classroom.
A lot of it too is building relationships with kids. So there's a huge mental health component to this, and our director of student services and well-being has really worked to put some protocols in place with district threat assessments, so a process to really have that team approach.
Price assured that every threat is taken seriously and that she's thankful to have such a resourceful staff to handle any situation.
We're really lucky in our district to have a great counseling department. We have all of our buildings staffed with a school counselor, and a lot of our teachers, if they are noticing something, are able to go to those counselors and either refer a student or just get advice for how to handle a certain situation.
Price made sure it was known that the safety and well-being of the school district students comes first and foremost in order to keep the kids coming and in school. Reporting in Toledo, Brian Steinmetz, NBC 24 News.
The Ohio Department of Higher Education has launched a plan to end hazing on college campuses. The plan includes a model anti-hazing policy plus guidelines for educational institutions to implement anti-hazing training programs. The materials were created in response to Senate Bill 126, also known as Collins Law, in honor of Colin Wyatt, who died in a hazing incident in 2018. That law takes effect today. Now, there's also been a renewed push for reform following the death of BGSU student Stone Fultz this past March. Toledo City Council is taking up a proposal that would repurpose a mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle for police use during standoffs or mass shootings. In a statement, Police Chief George Krall said that it would be used as a rescue vehicle, staffed with doctors and nurses to treat victims on scene. According to that proposal, that vehicle would be on loan from the U.S. Defense Logistics Agency. Owens Community College is investing in the labor market with the opening of the new Dana Center. That facility will provide technical training for careers in manufacturing and skilled trades. New classrooms and labs will be used by students in more than 20 associate degree programs.
Right now, there's no better job market, especially in the skilled trades area, in the robotics and automation area. Northwest Ohio is just really growing at a tremendous rate, and the opportunities are abound, high-paying jobs, great careers for these students that are interested in this area.
The $9.6 million facility was built through a partnership with Dana Incorporated. Flu season is right around the corner, and health experts are saying this year could be more severe and begin earlier. Not only that, with relaxed COVID restrictions, the Delta variant continues to overwhelm some hospitals. NBC 24's Sutton Donovan reports on how to spot the difference between the flu and COVID.
I think the best message to tell people is that if you're experiencing symptoms, it's nearly impossible to distinguish the difference between flu and COVID.
The flu and COVID-19 are two illnesses that are extremely hard to tell apart. They both have almost the same symptoms, including a fever, sore throat, cough, among many others.
The big differences between COVID and flu is that flu does not typically cause a change in your sense of taste or smell. COVID is pretty unique in doing that. Quite often, you feel sicker longer with COVID. You're getting better, within a week with the flu versus you're not with COVID.
Brian Kaminsky, the Vice President of Quality and Patient Safety for ProMedica, says if you become sick, it's much more likely it is from COVID-19 rather than the flu. If you start to feel sick, what should you do?
One of the first things you should do beyond talking with your provider, with your physician, try to isolate yourself so you don't make other people ill. Stay home from work, stay home from school, listen to your body, and start to try to recover from this.
But right now, health experts encourage everyone in the community to become vaccinated for COVID-19 and the flu. If you just received your COVID-19 vaccine, Kaminsky and Monger both say you can go get your flu shot right after. While you may have some side effects, vaccines are the most effective way to stay safe.
All the studies show that, especially with the COVID vaccine, but also with the flu vaccine, both reduce the severity of illness, both reduce the possibility of you landing in the hospital for either illness. They're both very important. Please get them both.
Now, health experts say in addition to vaccines, the best way to help protect yourself is to wash your hands, cover your cough, and just stay home when you're feeling sick. The U.S. is on track to quadruple the number of at-home COVID tests available by December. The White House announced a $1 billion investment to expand production of tests. The COVID response team says tens of millions will be available over the next 30 days. Many Americans have reported struggles with scheduling appointments to get tested or access to buying tests. The White House will still be able to track COVID-19 numbers with people testing at home.
Many of the people who test through a rapid test will confirm by PCR positivity, so we continue to track those cases, and in some cases we are relying on people to report their positivity.
Now, response coordinator Jeff Zients says the cost of at-home tests is expected to come down as manufacturing ramps up production and more brands are approved for use. He also indicated some could cost less than $10 each. Another check of the weather is coming up next. Still ahead this morning, what never-before-seen pictures are revealing about the dangers of the Islamic State's drone warfare program. Plus,
the Biden administration in damage control to repair the rift between Paris and Washington. I'm Christine Frazan with a closer look at some new questions that relationship is raising.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Paris yesterday, sounding optimistic about a badly damaged relationship with France. National correspondent Christine Frazan brings us a look ahead at what's next for the two countries.
A rocky relationship on the mend. U.S. leaders calling the partnership with France one of the most important in the world.
The conversations we've had just in the last 24 hours were very positive, very productive, and reflect a lot of important work that's in progress.
A different take from France's foreign minister, who told French lawmakers the crisis is serious. It is not resolved just because we have resumed dialogue, and it will last. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Paris this week for meetings with multiple world leaders. But much of the world is focused on the rift with France, stemming from a secret submarine deal between the United States, the UK, and Australia. France left out and left shortchanged to the tune of about $66 billion. The price tag of its submarine contract with Australia canceled.
I think there's very significant tension between Paris and Washington at the moment. I mean, this is certainly the lowest point in U.S.-French relations for several decades.
This week, Secretary of State Blinken seemed to apologize in an interview with the French television station.
We could and we should have communicated better.
But now another communication is raising questions. This interview of U.S. climate envoy John Kerry with a French news channel speaking about President Biden's lack of knowledge about the deal.
He asked me, he said, "What's the situation?" And I explained exactly. He had not been aware of that. He literally had not been aware of what had transpired.
John Kerry's spokesperson later tried to clarify, but critics are calling the statement bizarre and likely untrue.
I'm very sure, I think, that President Biden was, fully aware of what was happening or about to happen, and he would have been fully briefed by his key advisors on this particular matter.
The consensus among French leaders: talk is good, action is better. And we'll get a better sense on the direction that relationship is moving in when President Joe Biden meets face-to-face with French President Emmanuel Macron at the G20 summit in Rome at the end of this month. In Washington, I'm Christine Frazan.
Senate Democrats are seriously considering changing the chamber's rules and allowing the debt limit to be increased with only a simple majority. 4 sources tell NBC News that more Senate Democrats are showing support for a new exception to the filibuster. Most pieces of legislation require 60 votes to pass, meaning they can't pass without Republican support. Well, moderate Senate Democrats have opposed getting rid of the filibuster. Congress has until October 18th to raise the debt limit. The Senate Budget Committee chairman is calling out his colleagues for not falling in line with the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders is asking moderate Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to be straightforward about their demands. Sanders says they've been vague about what cuts they want from the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. He wants them to put their demands on the table so they can negotiate.
Senator Manchin has a right to fight for his point of view. He has not only a right to be heard, he has a right to get some compromises. He's a member of the Senate. But 2 people do not have the right to sabotage what 48 want and what the President of the United States wants.
Democrats have a self-imposed deadline for a deal by the end of this month. No Republicans support their agenda. Many are calling it reckless spending. An Iranian opposition group has revealed a large volume of previously unseen imagery and evidence about the Islamic State's drone warfare program and the damage it's capable of. National correspondent James Rosen reports from Washington.
We have the design center right here, this building. Then you have the assembly units.
At a Washington press conference Wednesday, members of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, or NCRI, the most prominent opposition group working against the regime both inside and beyond Iran's borders, unveiled a wealth of previously undisclosed details about the regime's secret and massive program to build and deploy unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, also known as drones.
Drones are one of the primary weapons used by the Iranian regime to export terrorism and warmongering.
Developed under the auspices of the Aerospace Force of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the all-powerful group that manages the regime's regional military and terror operations, the drones include vehicles such as the Shahad 129 that can carry weapons payloads, including up to 4 air-to-air missiles over 1,000 miles from Tehran.
They also use what they call suicide drones. They fire them, they pick a certain target and load them with explosive and just hit the target. What I'm going to reveal today.
Nearly 20 years ago, it was the same group that revealed the existence of Iran's secret nuclear complex at Natanz, which plunged the West into the prolonged negotiations over Iran's nuclear program that remain a point of contention today. Then as now, NCRI's revelations depend on informants inside Iran.
That's the building I mentioned.
This photograph of the facility that manufactures drone fuselage parts was smuggled out of southwestern Tehran. NCRI provided aerial images of 8 plants where Iran's secret drones are said to be manufactured, and 7 bases where the vehicles are said to be stored, maintained, and launched. For raw materials such as special fabrics and fibers, the regime is said to rely on imports from China. In Washington, James Rosen.
We'll have another check of your weather in just a moment. Don't forget, if you have a story idea we want to hear from you, head over to our Facebook page or send us an email.